Alright, what's up everybody? Let's do a quick audio check. We'll make sure the microphone is working. Also, if we are streaming in 1080p, just go ahead and give us a thumbs up in the chat. Also, if you refresh your browser, you should be able to rewind. I just enabled the DVR, so let me know if that is working as well. And if it is, just give us a thumbs up in the chat and we will get started here in a moment. It is Sunday night in New York City and it is just starting to rain. So hopefully it doesn't rain for too much longer. Thank you all for joining. Alright, I think we'll get started here. Okay, well, good evening everybody and welcome back to Walks and Wall Street. Today is Sunday night here in New York City. It is April 28th, 2024. It's about 9:13 p.m. Eastern Time, right here live on the corner of 5th Avenue and 59th Street, Central Park South. Now, I think this is pretty fitting to start the live stream here tonight because if we turn the camera a little bit to the right, You'll notice we're at the flagship 5th Avenue Apple Store, this massive cube-like structure. I think this is one of the most profitable Apple stores in the entire world in terms of not only profitability, but overall revenue that they do every single day. And next week, just like the previous week, we are going to hear from more notable companies. Now, the Dow 30, this is going to be a major week for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Many companies in the Dow are going to be reporting earnings. I would say most notable, there's going to be all eyes on a select few companies coming up next week, one of which being Apple. And there's been a lot of back and forth about, is Apple losing market share to Samsung and Android? What are iPhone sales going to look like, being that China is slowing down? And also the Apple Vision Pro. There's been a lot of hype, and I've been one of those who's been very bullish, I should say optimistic, on the prospect of the Apple Vision Pro doing really well. We've gotten some preliminary reporting out of Apple that turns out sales aren't doing too hot. However, that is all speculation up until this point. We will hear more conclusive information and data as Apple reports earnings next week. We are also going to be hearing from Amazon, ticker symbol AMZN, which is really going to be the last of the major cloud computing companies that everybody watches for. Very upbeat earnings last week we got from Alphabet, which has their Google Cloud unit, which I believe had operating income of about $900 million. Just for the Google Cloud unit alone, great quarter for Alphabet. Also Microsoft. They reported a fantastic quarter for their Microsoft Azure product. So if we can take those two numbers from both Alphabet and Microsoft, I think we're probably going to have a pretty good report for Amazon. Now, yes, corporate earnings are going to be dominating the week. Yes, we're going to be very busy doing deep dives on the likes of Apple, Coca-Cola, 3M, and McDonald's, right, the big Dow companies. But we also are going to get a major update as it relates to monetary policy. Yes, that is right. The FOMC meeting, or the Federal Open Market Committee meeting, will be taking place next week. Now, for some quick review, the current Fed funds rate is in a target range of 5.25% to 5.5%. And it looks like that's where it's going to stay. If you look at the CME Fed Watch tool, the market was pricing egregious inflation readings out, one of which being the core PCE number, which we got last week, came in at 2.8%, much hotter than expected. And then we got the March CPI numbers out, which is the Consumer Price Index. The headline number came in at 3.5%. So inflation running hot, much hotter than the Fed's expectations, which pretty much put a damper on any type of likelihood or hope or possibility of a rate cut this summer. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a hawk Fed Chair Jerome Powell comes off as he gives a speech at the conclusion of the FOMC meeting. That's really all I got for you guys. Bear with my voice tonight. I'm not feeling under the weather. I'm feeling 100% fantastic, but it's just I'm losing my voice a little bit, so I do apologize first and foremost for that. So I may not get to all the comments in the chats, and I may sound a little bit lethargic tonight just because I'm trying to work on my voice. I don't know. I believe it's a combination of allergies in the city, like everything is in full bloom, plus pretty much the entire office was sick. Anyway, not that you guys care, but guys, last announcement. I did send out the Behind the Street newsletter on Thursday. We covered a lot of ground. So if you would like to receive all of our equity research for free, completely free, head on over to our Substack by typing !news, N-E-W-S, in the chat and clicking the link to our Behind the Street newsletter. 2 years worth of archived research for you to have for free. And let's kick this thing off. All right, I'll go ahead and close up everything, and we'll get started. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Alrighty, let me clip the microphone on here. It's a little rainy again, but the good news is that it's only going to rain for about an hour. So, all right, I see Gary Carpenter. What's up, Gary? Good to see you as always. Esmeralda Andrews here, New England Crypto. Always a pleasure to see you in the chat. Patrick D. Andrews is reading my IBD Weekly to get a head start on the weeks. Walks on Wall Street in the background. What a life. Yeah, you know, there was an interesting article in IBD that I was reading today, which I believe was the cover story. It was all about hydrogen and hydrogen vehicles and the like. They were talking about that stock Plug Power. I mean, what a dog that stock has been. Now, I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I'm not an expert. I know many of you are actually engineers and experts, but from my understanding, the reason why hydrogen powered vehicles never really took off in the way that many analysts were once expecting is because it's very, very difficult to transport a lot of that hydrogen. And in order to create the hydrogen, it's best to do it on-prem or on-premise. Again, not to spark a huge debate on, you know, the efficiency of hydrogen. Also, as of now, it's very, very expensive, the process. So it's not going to be profitable without significant government subsidy. Although you could say the same thing about, oh, what about Elon Musk and Tesla and EVs in general? Those pretty much weren't profitable without government subsidy as well. But yeah, interesting article, not to go off on a tangent. But if you're interested in learning more about hydrogen vehicles or hydrogen power in general, check out this week's cover story of Investors Business Daily. Meg Berg is here. She says happy Sunday evening. Shannon, it's good to see you. Welcome, everybody. Feels really nice, too. It's like 70 degrees. Ren 1018, I see DM. Sally Allen says it's rained so much in New York City this year. It's been wild. Like, guys, this has been crazy amount of rain. Now, it's not raining right now. It's like a little drizzle. But to Alan's point, it's probably rained at least once or twice a week, every week this year. It's been wild. It's been really, really crazy. Hey, Dan Sang says, hey, Tom, what great weather we're having today. It was a beautiful, beautiful day. How did I get there? Says, Tom, could you kindly lower your mic level or reposition it? I don't know if I can. I'll try to reposition it. I don't know if I can lower the microphone level, but let me see what I can do. Give me a sec. I'll pull off to the side. Now, we're running a very low-tech operation here, folks. So it's not like I have this is just very, very bootleg. But give me a minute. Let me see if I can reposition. All right, I lowered the microphone a little bit. Let me just try to wipe the lens. Anyway, Patrice is 80 degrees tomorrow. Love it. Malcolm says, I see the Yankees and Rangers are going well. Yeah, it's going to be a big, big week. Big week for sports too, right? I think the Knicks are playing. Rangers are going to play. All right, let's head down towards 34th Street and we'll kick this thing off. Now, anybody have any... We'll let this guy go. Give me a second. Beautiful shot of 432 Park Avenue here. But since we're standing directly outside the Apple store, right here on 5th Avenue, Apple is reporting earnings next week. And the stock has been rather lackluster. One of the things that we wrote about in the Behind the Street newsletter that I sent out on Thursday is if you look at the top 10 stocks in the S&P 500, right? And there's a really good free resource, really good website. It's called slickcharts.com. So www.slickcharts.com. And it'll give you the entire breakdown and the weighting of the S&P 500 and the Dow. Now, it's interesting because there's only 2 stocks. There's actually probably more now because Friday was an incredible rally day. But there's only, let's just say 4 stocks because I think Microsoft is back above the 50. But there's only around 4 stocks out of the top 10 in the S&P that are trading above their 50-day and 200-day moving average. Now, Apple has been kind of lackluster, right? Massive mega cap company. Now, is it one of 2 things? Is it that Apple's just kind of taking a pause here, or are we going to continue to see from here on out muted returns from Apple due to, let's just say, I'm not claiming this is what it is, but due to lack of innovation, increasing competition, and erosion of market share from Samsung and the like? What do you think? Also, which is probably the most fun question we're going to ask tonight, what do you guys think is going to be the verbiage from Tim Cook on the Apple Vision Pro? Now remember, this is the first quarter that we're probably going to get actual detailed reporting for the Vision Pro. I remember when that thing launched, it was crazy. I mean, we were talking about it probably for like 2 weeks straight. The hype has seemed to have died down a little bit, but I still think numbers are going to come in pretty good. There was some preliminary reporting that Vision Pro wasn't selling as well as they expected, and they actually started to cut production. So I don't know, it'll be interesting to see. Crypto Meme says Apple may have some AI stuff we don't know about. If they would innovate and turn Siri into an AI assistant, they could dominate almost overnight. Interesting. Now, I was having a conversation or a chat with one of my buddies over the weekend. And here's something that maybe not a lot of people are thinking about. I think all of this augmented reality, virtual reality stuff is great, right? 2 examples. Number 1, the Quest headset from Meta, right? Our big good friend Mark Zuckerberg. And number 2, the Apple Vision Pro from Apple. Yes, it's expensive, right? Number 1, the expense. And yes, it's clunky. However, these are really, I would say Gen 1 products. So these are the worst that these products are ever going to be. However, Elon Musk's company Neuralink, as we're standing outside of the Trump Tower, completely kind of jumps over an entire technological innovation cycle. And what I mean by that is with the Neuralink, you're not going to have to wear anything. You're just going to have a chip in your brain, and you're going to have all the features and capabilities that you would get with these augmented reality and virtual reality, things, but it's automatically in your head, quite literally. Now, the functionality and the capabilities may not be there today, but if you have Vision, right, no pun intended, Vision Pro, it's going to get there. I've said this many, many times, and I think it's important for everybody to take a look at it again. If you go to X, or the formerly, known as Twitter, and you go to Elon Musk's profile, he retweeted the first successful Neuralink implant, if you will. And it was this young kid, I think he's like 27 years old, and unfortunately, he was paralyzed in some really horrible accident that he had. And I believe he's paralyzed from the shoulders down. And it was a video of this gentleman playing chess. He was able to operate these individual chess pieces with his mind. It was really extraordinary to see. Now, many people are like, it's not that impressive. He's just playing a game of chess. Understood. But today, it's being able to play a game of chess, right, with your mind. In 10 years, what do you think it's going to be, right? So it's very, very possible that these technologies could just totally overstep the physical, I should say, goggles of, Meta's Quest headset and the Apple Vision Pro. Any thoughts on that?
Hey, JY, what's going on from South Korea? Good to see you. Stan says, I am averse to risk, period. However, stocks and financials are quite interesting. Crypto Meme says, Google doesn't have a device. KML, what's up? Solo 401. This is too big, bulky screen. A collector's dream is here. What's going on? Now, this is the residential entrance to the Trump Tower. 721 Fifth Avenue. Yeah, K4 says mind control literally, for sure. Absolutely. I don't know. I feel as if that's a potential risk to those business models, but maybe I'm starting to think way too far down the line. Let's start to head down and cross over. We'll try to avoid those buffering zones like we did before. Doc 7 says the sky is indeed the limit of these proof of concept tech plays. Yeah, that's why I do believe that this kind of correction that we're in is exactly that, is a correction in a larger cyclical bull market that could last for 10 years. Again, I was on the phone with a really good friend of mine who's a very successful hedge fund manager, and he's explaining this to me like the build out of the internet, right? How long did it take for the internet to be completely built out? You had the original hype cycle, the 1999, 2000 tech and telecom boom bust, right? As we're looking at the Peninsula Hotel here, beautiful building. It took over 20 years to get to where we are today, right? 24 years for the complete and total build out of the internet. So if we're just starting to talk about all these different AI tools, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, if this is inning one, this could last for a long time, right? Just using previous adoption cycles as our guide. So potentially you have like a frothy, irrational exuberance bull market with all this AI stuff. I think the key tell with that is going to be once pure play AI companies start to come public on the market. This is exactly what you had in the 2000 tech wreck, right? And you can try to like compare and contrast this market to that market, and it's not similar at all. I think when you're going to start to see a lot of the frothiness, you'll have exactly what you had in 2000, where any random company was going public with .com at the end of its name, and people thought it was the next best thing, Now, you don't really have any pure play AI companies coming public. Yeah, there's a couple, but when you have irrational exuberance on the street, you have a massive wave of those type of companies coming public. So this could be very, very early innings of this. Anyway, this is East 54th Street, 5th Avenue. What you're looking at right now is the University Club. This is just a spectacular building. If you haven't been inside, you got to look at some of the photos on Google Images. It's an unbelievable, it's an unbelievable space inside the University Club. It's amazing. Check it out. Yeah, Brian Prost is Microsoft's co-pilot for sure. KML says AI is going to require an awful lot of regulation at the outset because we really have no idea where it might lead us. I agree. Totally agree. Let me just catch up on some of the chats. Now, another thing that interests me, there's an old saying in Silicon Valley. Let's just cross here. I want to see what these guys are doing at the University Club. See what kind of cool stuff they're building. When you're lagging, right? When you're behind the curve, you open source everything, right? And when you're ahead of the curve, you close everything off. And Meta just recently, like literally breaking news, started to open source their AI. So imagine how much better those models are going to get over time now that a lot of these things are going to start to become open source so companies can compete with each other. It's funny that the stock was actually down quite substantially on that news, which was a little bit perplexing to me. Argan says, Tom, what do you think of the oil prices right now? Well, when I checked futures right as I was going on the live stream here, hope everybody's all right. Anyway, as I was checking futures, I think crude oil, if you look at ticker symbol CL, I think it's at what, $83? Crude's actually down. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. If crude gets a big rally, I think that's the market telling us that the whole mess situation that we have in the Middle East is going to escalate even more. But if you see very muted gains in crude over the next couple weeks, which we're starting to see now, I think that's the market telling you that this big thing is probably going to calm down. It's going to be a rather non-issue, which is good, right? For humanity, for the sake of humanity, I think that's what everybody wants, in my view. This is the Microsoft store. Microsoft reported a great quarter last week. The last of the big cloud players to report is Amazon. Ticker symbol AMZN. We're going to hear from Amazon AWS. Peter says $90 during the summer is my prediction. It's definitely possible. Brian says AI response will be revolutionary. I'm not sure if we brought this up, but the founder of Point72 Asset Management, right, who also owns the New York Mets, came out, wrote a little bit of an article saying that due to AI, it's going to increase operational efficiency so much that it is going to therefore solidify a 4-day work week in the United States. Is that a little bit too far-fetched, or you think that's going to be true? Now, I do think that AI is really going to, make people so much more productive. I was talking to a good friend of mine who's a doctor, and he is very, very optimistic on the outlook of a lot of these AI chatbots in aiding doctors in making their diagnoses and things like that, which, in his words, he said, a lot of these baseline AI chatbots could assist in very non-life-threatening things, right? If your kid has a runny nose, instead of taking the kid all the way to the doctor, well, maybe you could, talk to one of these, supervised AI chatbots that's specifically built for the medical field, right? So non-life-threatening things that are kind of clogging up doctors' offices, clogging up emergency rooms, potentially AI could just kind of take care of all that stuff. Imagine how much more productive doctors could be if they could just focus on the truly critical and have kind of like an AI assistant outsource a lot of the things that are not super life-threatening, right? Like if you want to renew a prescription or something like that, you don't have to go all the way into the doctor's office. You can maybe answer a few questions on the AI chatbot, things like that. So, just the operational efficiencies that AI in general could create, if assuming that all the promises of AI from all the experts, right, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, and the like, promise, like all their claims, if they come correct, this could be pretty wild. Things could get pretty wild. And imagine if every single company in the S&P 500 just could have a 1% improvement to gross margin. What would that do to earnings? This could get crazy. So, wow, I'm so glad the city is dead tonight. I felt like the city was chaotic this week. It's very peaceful walking down Fifth Avenue. It's really nice. Guys, this is the beautiful St. Patrick's Cathedral right here. PR3TU. Says, Tom, I bet healthcare and insurance companies would lobby against that. You think so? You think that, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say you're wrong. Why do you think they would lobby against that? Just out of curiosity, like, what is your position, just so I can understand a little bit better? You think that would take money out of their pocket, I guess? I don't know about that. Here you see the Cartier building, beautiful. And then right next to it is the former Versace flagship on Fifth Avenue. Now, speaking of real estate, right, these big luxury brands, there was an amazing article that I think everybody should read in the Wall Street Journal. So if you go to the exchange section of the weekend edition of the Wall Street Journal, they did an entire piece on LVMH Moet Hennessy, right? Bernard Arnault's company, massive success, mega luxury brand. And it was, I mean, just an unbelievable article. So many things to learn from that. Bernard Arnault was asked a question, and he said, if you could acquire one luxury brand right now, and you didn't have to worry about the price, what would it be? He said Cartier. But aside from that, the article really goes into not necessarily LVMH Moet Hennessy being a pure play luxury brand, but being a real estate empire, right? And strategically, almost like kind of playing Monopoly. When I was reading the article, it kind of brought me back to the days when I was a little kid, you know, like playing Monopoly with my brother. But strategically acquiring just, you know, lights out assets in terms of hard physical locations in the best locations in the world. And the article went on to mention the building that we always stream past every night, the Tiffany flagship right on Fifth Avenue. They invested $500 million into the renovations there, $500 million. They talked about how LVMH Moet Hennessy pretty much revolutionized Miami's design district, and the huge play there. But they also talked about the importance of competitors. So even though that LVMH, the company, right, via their private equity firm, which they own about a 40% stake in, even though they own all of that real estate in Miami's design district, they actively seek out their competition as tenants. It's just an amazing article. If you're interested in business, if you're interested in private equity, brand building, you got to read that article this week in the Wall Street Journal, front cover, all about LVMH. Fantastic. Really, really good article. All right, here we are, 30 Rockefeller Center. Beautiful looking tonight. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams pretty much every day starting at 8:30. Cole, what's going on? It says hello from Tijuana, Mexico. Love that. Good to see all of our Mexican viewers as we approach this crazy, crazy week on Wall Street, which will probably be pretty volatile. We are getting, well, we're going to hear from our good friend Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Guys, next week, these trees here are going to look beautiful. You can kind of see the flowers just starting to bud out of them right now. You see this? Look at that. We'll have to come back and watch the progress. Beautiful Art Deco building here. Oh wow, GNS is Oklahoma got it the next day. It's been hell over here. Well, please keep safe, and hopefully all will work out. Michelle Henry says Oklahoma just had a bunch of tornadoes the other day, and the season just started. Yeah, PR says additionally, even though it's a bit twisted, the chatbots can, identify these illnesses much, much early on. Early detection is the way to go. Although a lot of illnesses are very difficult to detect early on, which kind of sucks. There's a lot of cancers that are very, very difficult to detect. One of which being pancreatic cancer. Usually when you start showing symptoms of having pancreatic cancer, it's usually in very late stages, like late stage 3 or stage 4, which is unfortunate. But it's very possible these new emerging technologies that can use AI, and even aside from that, like all these CRISPR gene editing technologies, in our lifetime, it's very possible that these diseases, these illnesses, could just be pretty much edited away, for lack of a better terminology. So there's a lot to be optimistic about, and there's a lot to be bullish on. Now, I was having a conversation with my friend, and I want your guys' take and opinion on the following, okay? Now, by and large, let's just say over the last 30 years, China had a major advantage, right? I would say over the US in terms of manufacturing, right? Why is that as we're looking at 270 Park? Well, all of you are saying because of the cheap labor, right? And I would agree. And again, this is my friend's position. I'm just I told him I'd talk about it on the stream. Now, it's possible that all of these, robotics companies, right? I'll name one, Tesla. I think my biggest bull thesis on Tesla is not even the EVs, it's all of this robotic stuff, like with the Tesla bot. Could you imagine we get to a level in the economy where we have robots doing all the laborious manufacturing tasks that we once outsourced to other countries because of their cheap labor? That could literally put those economies in a tailspin. And I never really thought about it like that, but it's quite possible. If you've seen the Optimus, I believe that's what they're calling it, right? The Tesla bot. If this thing actually works out, I'm not saying it's going to work out, but it's quite possible that it will. 10 years, 20 years down the line, if all of our very hard, strenuous, laborious manufacturing is done by robots, well, we don't need this cheap labor from overseas. It can be done here, right? The intellectual property and the capital can be protected here, and we just have everything done by robots. What is that going to do to these economies that were built, right, and helped on this cheap labor? It's an interesting position. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Again, I don't know. That's just a total speculation, but I think that's something we need to take into account. It's interesting, right? Yeah, Optimus 17 says, well, that would change reliance on outsourcing for sure. Now, again, that's not going to happen anytime soon. There's no, I'm talking, if that was going to happen, you're talking 30 years, maybe more. But if you can have a walking physical robot, like a lot of these companies claim, think about the Boston Dynamics, you think about what Elon Musk was talking about in the earnings call, this could totally transform and revolutionize manufacturing, not only abroad, but right here in the United States. Adventures is not if the robots are more expensive than the cheap overseas labor. Good point. I guess over time, right? You have, in any major technological cycle, at first, everything is crazy expensive, right? Think about the first time big screen, flat screen TVs came out, right? You were spending $3,000, $4,000 on a big screen TV. Now you can go to Walmart and get one for, $300, $400. All right, let me catch up on some of the comments. OP says same thing that happened when the jobs left there. People lost their jobs and cities crashed economically. Doc 7 says China probably cannot survive if we keep being competitive with them. Their centered economy will not be able to compete unless they unleash their capitalist animal spirits. It's an interesting point, but the funny thing is, over the years, China has actually adopted this kind of like a capitalistic approach. And I think that's why, they've made some real strides in tech. The only thing is, it's kind of like they play a gotcha, right? If a company does too well and if an entrepreneur gets too rich, they'll kind of make them disappear. I mean, whatever happened to Jack Ma? He was way too outspoken. Alibaba was crushing, and then he probably got a tap on the shoulder from the CCP saying, hey, just calm it down a little bit. Wow. Barris says, Tom, a plasma screen TV in 2003 was about $10,000. I can't even imagine that. Origin says it would create more unemployment. Maybe, but okay, let's try to look at it from an optimistic approach. Is it really that much of a bad thing if we have the robots do a lot of the laborious jobs that put a lot of stress on us? I don't think so. You've already seen a version of this through the Industrial Revolution, right? There was a time where you would have children, 10, 15-year-old kids going to work in factories, getting their limbs caught in machines and getting their fingers chopped off and arms chopped off, limbs chopped off. And that was a reality. And we had a form of, streamlined processes and more advanced machinery, robots, you could call them, make those tasks kind of go away and make things a little bit more safe. I think this is the next step in advancement in that. And what is that going to do, tying it back into like stock prices and earnings, what is that going to do to gross margins? I think it's going to absolutely explode gross margins at some of these companies because by and large, right, what is the number one expense for an organization? It's people. And if you can significantly reduce the amount of employees you have while continuously increasing productivity, increasing sales, and increasing earnings, I mean, the S&P 500 could be substantially higher by the time I'm 80. I mean, you're talking like ridiculous. Arav D says, yeah, but you can't have the robot produce a stock market exchange. That's already been done, probably 15 years ago. The vast majority of market making is all algos. The vast majority of trades are all executed by algorithms. You can consider that a robot, right? The Quants, The Rise of the Quants. That's a really good book. If you're interested in a lot of the quantitative side of finance and the hedge fund business, there's a really good book about the founder of Renaissance Technologies. I believe it's called The Man Who Solved the Market. It's all about quantitative strategies and things like that. This is 1290 Avenue of the Americas. This is the Neuberger Berman building. I haven't seen this truck here. It's a kebab truck. Seems pretty popular. Never seen it. Maybe it's here to compete with Adele's Famous. Brad's Brain says, what industries will still require people? seems to me only construction and repair. Adrian says, I think once that happens, universal basic income will be necessary for low-skilled workers. Maybe. I think that's a position that the former presidential candidate Andrew Yang once proposed as he was raising these concerns about AI, automation, and the like. He's saying, look, this change is going to happen so fast. Excuse me, I'm kind of losing my voice. Apologize. But his kind of position is similar to this shadow that kind of put that blurb in the chat. It's that, look, this change is going to happen so fast. We didn't even talk about autonomous vehicles yet. I mean, we talked about AI chatbots, things like, we didn't even scratch the surface on autonomous driving. We didn't even begin that conversation. So imagine what's going to happen to, truck drivers and the like. I don't know. Now, does anybody here have a Tesla? I don't, but I'm curious to see if we have any Tesla owners in the chat could give their opinions on the self-driving that was just released. What your thoughts were on it. I was chatting with a few friends in the Valley who have Teslas, and they say it's incredible. This is 53 West 53rd Street. If you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams almost every day starting at 8:30. Oh, that's right, Colton Manning, you're right across the street. What's going on? I'd come over and say hi. I'm a little sick, so I don't want to get you sick. But yeah, Colton's right over here. 1301 Avenue of the Americas. It's a nice building, beautiful building. Wendy England says self-driving not allowed here. Hey, what's up, Todd? Sharon says I have a Model 3 but not subscribed to the full self-driving yet. So how much is the full self-driving package? I think that's the big game changer. I mean, that's huge. New England Cryptos time. I have a good friend who has one. He just took it from New Hampshire to Texas. He said it was like having a chauffeur. Wow. Phil says, I don't want to be a guinea pig for Tesla's half-baked full self-driving, which has killed people. Well, I mean, that's just part of the progression cycle. I mean, that's just, things get better, things improve. I'm sure, the horse and buggy lobby were saying the same thing about internal combustion engine vehicles. Like, oh, these vehicles are going way too fast and they're hitting people. They can't control the vehicle as well as I control my horse. How did that work out for those people? Not very well. But I definitely understand what you're saying, Phil. In a controlled environment, it's probably lights out, it's amazing. But let's kind of take the other side of that argument, right? You say, it's dangerous, the full self-driving has killed people. Well, how many people has drunk driving killed over the years, right? How many families and lives have, drunk driving destroyed? Thousands, maybe millions globally? Well, I got some good news for you guys. You do realize that fatalities from driving drunk is going to go to zero, right? I'll say that again. You do realize that drinking and driving is like, when my kids are my age, they're going to be like, what is drinking and driving? Like, huh? What do you mean? Why was that dangerous? They're going to have these vehicles drive themselves. There's going to be no error. There's all of these, horrible tragedies of, driving under the influence, drinking and driving. That's going to go to zero with full self-driving. I mean, what is the total addressable market of that? I mean, you can't even put a price on that, a family member or a loved one. So that is how big the opportunity is here. And that's just scratching the surface. So once you have true full self-driving, all of those things are going to go to zero. That's huge. Sorry. for my coughing. Phil says the problem, Tom, is that Musk has cheaped out and taken vital sensors away and needed to have an accurate full self-driving system. I don't know about that. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if that's true or not. Todd says, interesting point about self-driving vehicles eliminating drunk driving. Never thought about that. And that's only scratching the surface, my friends. That's only scratching the surface. Think about, some of these truckers that, work so hard. They've pretty much built America, kept us pretty much alive through the coronavirus, right? Our truckers, our great truckers in this country. Some of them are overworked. They do these cross-country road trips. They fall asleep at the wheel. Freak incidents happen. With true full self-driving, that is a thing of the past. So you can and this is kind of like a technique a good buddy of mine taught me, very good investor, is that try to just continuously push your mind. It's kind of like doing bench press, kind of like, just throw up one more rep. So any emerging technology, this is a really good restaurant here, Wagamama, really good. Any emerging technology that you see, try to wire your brain not to say, oh no, that's not gonna work. Oh no, it's not gonna, oh, this is bullshit. Oh, that's not gonna work. There's so many people that are negative like that. Try to almost brainwash yourself to be like, oh my God, this is gonna be so disruptive. This is gonna solve this is gonna solve that. And just try to keep pushing your mind to see the possibilities. Because as an investor, right, so long as it's actually backed up by the facts, backed up by the financials, backed up by the revenue growth, backed up by the earnings, that's what's going to keep you in these stocks, right? That's what's going to keep you in this game, to sit with these big monsters, right? And not to flip out, through a little correction. The vision, the fundamentals of the story, right? So to be able to have that mechanism to continuously generate ideas, right? An endless idea generation stream is really what you need to be a very successful trader and investor. And then we didn't even talk about, like surgeries, medical advancements in surgeries with, remote surgeries, robotics. I think there's a company, Intuitive Surgical, I believe they trade under the ticker symbol ISRG. Sorry. They're doing some crazy stuff too. Yeah, Todd says, for sure, we probably have no idea how AI will change our way of life forever. I agree. And for all the jobs it's going to destroy, it's probably going to create 4 times the amount of jobs it destroys. We've explained this before. With the build out of the internet, murked hundreds of thousands of jobs, but it also created hundreds of thousands of jobs, right? Software engineer didn't even exist. A cloud account executive, selling AWS, selling Azure, selling Google's Google Cloud. That stuff didn't even exist. Digital advertising sales, that didn't exist. So, if you're a Salesforce administrator at a company, that didn't exist because Salesforce wasn't even created. So there's all these different job opportunities that are going to be created. But the pessimists will say, okay, well, give me an example, right? A pessimist will say, okay, give me an example of these jobs that are going to be created. To which my answer is, I can't tell you, I don't know. And that's the right answer, we don't know. If you went back to 1965 and you could give yourself in 1965 a glimpse into the future about what the internet was, imagine just trying to describe to somebody that's living in 1965 about what we're doing right now. Oh yeah, there's this guy who's walking around New York City doing a live broadcast in 1080p, talking to thousands of people, and we're having a debate about AI, and we're doing it over this platform called YouTube, and everybody's from all over the world, and we're joining in this big chat room. They would think you're crazy, right? So it's going to get even crazier. I think we need to keep our foot on the gas, be optimistic about it, and I think we need to lean into this technology. I think we can't stifle the innovation We really need to lean in. Look at this place. This is cool. Look at the facade here. You have this beautiful pre-war facade with these fire escapes. This is like a cool speakeasy kind of bar. Cool spot, right? Justin's case is like people were optimistic about plastic. Yeah, I mean, plastic did a lot of good for the world. I mean, if we didn't have plastics, I mean, you wouldn't have anything that you're seeing right now. You wouldn't have these phones. You wouldn't have a lot of the medical devices that we have. You wouldn't have anything. But if you're really not if you're really not, that bullish on plastics, well, you can be, an optimist about it and look at some of the companies that are trying to, reduce their plastic output. One of which, my friend actually got a placement in this company. He was an early stage investor in it. Has anybody heard of the beverage company? How am I blanking on the name? I was just talking to him about it the other day. Liquid Death. Anybody heard about that? Maybe you haven't, but that's kind of what Liquid Death is all about. It's death to plastic. So it's essentially water in an aluminum can that's branded in a cool, edgy way. Then they have sparkling water, and that's kind of their company motto, is death to plastic. Out of curiosity, anybody here heard of that company, Liquid Death, by chance? Adventures is, to use your example, think back to 1965. No one would be optimistic about the internet because they had no idea what it was. Our ability to predict what will happen 60 years from now is nil. That's a really good point. That's a really, really good point. And that's kind of when all the alpha's in the trade. I think you get the comment of the night, Adventure. That's a really good way to put it. Adventure makes a really good point. But that is kind of, as an investor, you almost have to train yourself to some extent to lean into these possibilities, because that is when the risk-reward ratio is going to be the most beneficial to you. It's called an asymmetric trade. Excuse me. And that's kind of when you find those asymmetries in the market. When everybody, like right now, if I ask somebody, hey, are you bullish on the internet? Everybody say, oh yeah, of course. Well, yeah, so that means most of the alpha is sucked out of that trade, right? But when you can find something that may have a shot, right, that just might work, but when the vast majority of people are like, no, it's a pie in the sky, crazy idea. I don't think it could happen. That is when you need to lean into that, because even though it may fail, that is going to provide you with the greatest asymmetric risk profile to make a fortune, right? And you could do an audit and, kind of fact check a lot of this stuff we're saying. Think about when the iPhone just came out. You can watch a lot of those old talk shows, like the Today Show with, Matt Lauer, and all the guests and all the co-hosts are like kind of, brushing off the iPhone, saying, why do we need this thing? This thing is a little bit crazy. This, stupid piece of tech. Who needs, email? Who needs an iPhone, right? Well, $2 trillion later, and everybody needs an iPhone, right? I feel as if you kind of have that same trade right now, not as much with some of these cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. Yeah, it could work. It's a pretty good idea. And there's a lot of people on the other side of the trade that thinks it doesn't work, that thinks it's a scam, that thinks it's a fraud. But I feel as if you had the best asymmetric risk profile there, 2016, 2017. Now, I think you'll still make really good returns in that space. I think you're still early, but a lot of that alpha has been sucked out of there because you now have the big players in there, right? You have all the institutions in there now, you have all these ETFs, so it's pretty much mainstream. But think about all the people who were involved in Bitcoin back in 2016, 2017, right, when nobody even really heard about it. So it's interesting. But in general, as you're going through life and as you're making investments, and again, this is all the stuff I'm saying is like what I was taught about the investment business from people who are really successful in it. You want to look for setups that are going to give you a crazy asymmetric risk profile, and you can kind of tell when you're stumbling into something like that when a lot of people have conflicting opinions about it and when things are failing. And I think you're seeing the same thing right now with a lot of this autonomous driving. You have a lot of people very, very bearish right now on Tesla. I don't own Tesla, but I think if you had to ask me a question, gun to my head, do I think the next 500 points in Tesla or do I think the next 200 points in Tesla are down or up, which essentially would mean Tesla's going to go to zero? I think the next 200 points will be up over time. Anyway. All right, let me catch up on some of the chats. Brad says, Tom, here in Houston, there is a bar that's been around forever called Numbers. It's a sign. A couple of years back, my niece mentioned it and said it's a bar called Hashtags. Internet changed it. It's hilarious. EMV says, quick question. How big was BlackBerry in the US before the iPhone? I don't know the answer to that. But to your point, EMV, was it Steve Ballmer that was talking about like kind of laughing off the iPhone? I think this was him, and I think there's interviews. And he's like, what? The iPhone? It'll never work. It doesn't have a keyboard. How are you going to win over business customers if the iPhone doesn't even have a keyboard? And then you had a total demolition of BlackBerry, and now every single corporation in America runs on iOS. So even the best and the brightest, they don't know. To Adventurer's point, we don't know what's going to happen. We could just place as many bets as possible. Ozzy says, what kind of office do you work in? Just like a regular Manhattan office, like an older style. Older office. Maybe like 1970s. It's not like a super nice office. It's just old, but if you guys like these kind of conversations that we have each and every night, feel free to type !news, NEWS, in the chat, and that will drop the link to our Substack. We publish all of our equity research every other Thursday, right as the market closes, and we just emailed our last report to all of our subscribers. Also, hopefully, we will have our first article in the Leadership and Success column of Investors Business Daily published next month. So look out for that. Preliminary, but we should be in there next month in the Leadership and Success column. That'll be the first, or our first article there. But I'll definitely let you guys know. Now, this building right off to your left, this is the Barclays Investment Bank. This is a British bank, but it used to be Lehman Brothers, 745 7th Avenue. This was the main headquarters of Lehman Brothers when it collapsed. Oh, Brad, oh my God, the Nextel push-to-talk phones. Says, I wish we still had the Nextel push-to-talk. That was awesome. Now, Nextel, Sprint then bought Nextel, right? Or Sprint merged with Nextel, I think. Now, obviously, I never worked for Nextel, but I worked for Sprint. And I remember in our office on Long Island, in these drawers, we had all of these NASCAR like sponsorships, like the Nextel Cup. And all this stuff was so old. And a lot of the older managers from the office would tell me, you know, how they were making crazy money back in the day as account executives selling these like kind of like chirp devices, these push-to-talk chirp devices to all the major construction companies in New York. Crazy how all that kind of went downhill. But yeah, the push-to-talk chirp Nextel devices. So that's technically just a two-way radio, right? Just a two-way radio push-to-talk communication device. Oh, sorry about that. Brian Pro says, I pushed leadership, but I was wrong because Samsung and iPhone took over. I remember the Nextel push-to-talk. Now that we're on the topic about phones, what do you guys think about, what do you think Apple's going to report next week? There's a lot of analysts on the street that thinks that iPhone sales is going to be pretty lackluster. What do you guys think? Are we going to get like a horrible, horrible report? Andy's just weak. Well, revenue's supposed to be down 9%. But according to the experts, and experts are often wrong, Apple's supposed to return to growth next year. Fun face is Tom, probably a relief bounce from Apple, because that's been the trend this earnings season. Maybe, I think you're right. Ed Dunkel says, I wonder how they'll report the Vision Pro numbers. I'm very curious about that too, because the moment the Vision Pro came out, and I think you guys remember this, there was so much hype around it, and I was very, very excited about it, and I'm still very excited about it. But somebody sent me this article. I think it may have actually been Ed. I don't know. Somebody sent me this article that says that Apple is going to start to cut production of the Vision Pro because the sales were lackluster than what they were expecting. I don't know. I don't know if that's been confirmed or not. I mean, we'll find out next week. But as a little bit of anecdotal data, I mean, when that thing first launched, I mean, you had some of the biggest creators of all time, you know, making content about the Vision Pro that was getting millions and millions of views, like MKBHD, Casey Neistat, and even we were in the Apple Store at 10 o'clock at night, and people were buying that stuff. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see if that's really going to take off. I think it will. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. Isabel says the Vision Pro is way too expensive for what it is. I agree, but I think they did that on purpose for their first generation product. Because a first gen product, right, is really not meant for the mass market. It's meant for the developers to get it in their hands. It's meant for, you know, the crazy, like Apple cultists to get it in their hands and provide feedback. I think the mass market Vision Pro, if they don't discontinue this thing, is probably going to be like the 4th or the 5th generation product. But you're totally right. I mean, the thing is way too expensive. Way too expensive. Motorized Bike Trips says, I think Apple's going to be lackluster across the board. Barris says, I don't think people will spend $4K on a virtual reality headset. I think the only bright spot in the Apple earnings report that we're going to get is going to be the services. That's my prediction. So if you think about their services, that's all like their cloud software offerings, because that stuff is very, very scalable and it's very profitable. So the services side of the business for Apple is going to be a massive, massive part of the business just in and of itself. I think we're going to have to maneuver our way out of Times Square. Look at how busy it is tonight. Mad Mappers is augmented reality is where it's at. Mach E's Vision Pro is in its iPhone X stage. Does anybody remember iPhone went from OLED displays to LCD? Out and about, good to see you. Adventures, I literally just asked ChatGPT 4 if AI was scalable and got a positive and interesting answer. Well, maybe ChatGPT is a little bit biased on the future prospects of AI. All right, so we were buffering down there last time, so let's kind of make a U-turn and kind of navigate out of here. But Times Square is pretty busy tonight. Really, really busy. So in general, next week, everybody, it's going to be a very, very busy week for earnings. A lot of the big stocks of the Dow Jones Industrial Average are going to report. We're going to hear from McDonald's, right? Ticker symbol MCD. We're going to hear from 3M, ticker symbol MMM. Now, 3M is not really a company that I really ever pay attention to, but I am quite interested to see how they're going to report after their lawsuit settlement. I believe they are now completely finished with that lawsuit from the military. Is that correct? Sorry. From my understanding, there was a lawsuit with the 3M, their earplugs that they sold to the military. They didn't work. There was some severe hearing loss, some of our service members, and I believe that has now been rectified. So we'll see. Ticker symbol MMM is going to report as well. And then we're going to get the big pharma, all that stuff, AMZN. This is Brooklyn Chop House. Hey, what's up, Steve? Just tell him we love staying at the Edison Hotel. Yeah, it is a nice hotel. I think we just passed it. Let me see. Let me see. Yeah, we did. Let's take a look at the facade. Unfortunately, all the scaffolding all over it. So you have the Edison Ballroom right here. And we'll look at the main entrance to the Edison Hotel, or Hotel Edison. Looks like they got a nice restaurant in here, the Rum House. I feel as if half the buildings that we pass on the stream have scaffolding all over it. Oh wow, Out and About is based on a variety of factors. Individual payouts were between $7,000 and $700,000. Can't really see the facade, but Austin City Limits is Tom. What do you have? Allergies or light cold? I don't know. I think it may be a little bit of both, but I usually never get allergies. Like, I feel fine, but I'm losing my voice a little bit. Brian Pro says 3M has always played footsies with the military. Yeah, like I said, I'm not too read up on the topic, but I just knew the stock was getting crushed during that time. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, if they were selling a faulty product to our military, I think they should have to pay some repercussions, especially something as serious as that. I mean, Carolyn says, can you do a tour of 111 West 56th Street? Now, it's interesting. So there's two buildings with a very, very similar name that a lot of people get confused. There's 111 West 56th Street, which is the Thompson Hotel Tower, which is a beautiful building. There's some interesting stuff there. A colleague of mine was working a deal there, and the deal fell apart because the lobby of the building essentially shares the lobby with the hotel. And since you are buying in a condo, they gave additional seats to the hotel. So at the end of the day, the hotel has more voting rights on what can be done to the lobby and the like. And the client didn't like that, so they pulled out of the deal. That's 111 at the Thompson Hotel. But then, right across the street, you have 111 West 57th Street, which is the Steinway Tower, which is the skinniest residential apartment building in the entire world. And that is crazy money. That's big, big money. I think things start there, like $7.5 million. But yeah, if I get any listings in there, sure, I'll take you in there. I only like to film property tours in listings that we have. I don't like to do it in other people's listings. But it's a beautiful building. Steinway Tower is unbelievable. I've previewed it with the team. It's a stunning building. It's unreal. It'll absolutely blow you away. Hey, Jonathan from Florida. What's up? This is Tom. Drink orange juice from Florida. It'll help. Well, hopefully I'll be down in South Florida pretty soon. Probably mid-May I'll be back, which I'm really excited about. This week I'm going to upload a really cool walking video of Bay Harbor Island. And we're going to walk directly past the construction site of this really cool new development. Same developer as the building that we're working on selling in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Red Hook Partners. So you'll be able to see that. This is the corner of West 46th Street and 8th Avenue. This is the official start of Restaurant Row in New York. And this is the official construction site of the Torch. So Extel, who's a major developer in the city, who built 157 and Central Park Tower, they're going to build another crazy super tall building right here called the Torch. It's going to have 850 hotel rooms, and it's going to have a drop ride attraction. So if you guys just go on Google Images and type in the Torch, you'll be able to see some of the renderings. It's crazy. It's going to be built right there. But if you guys are enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We usually do these streams every night starting at 8:30. Here's that new building in Times Square. Honest has had a scratchy throat last week. Zycam definitely helps. Thank you for that. Yeah, Grizzlies, it sounds like you might have some bronchitis. I don't know about that. For some context, every single person in my office, everybody, literally, was out with strep throat. And I was the only holdout. And I was hammering the vitamin C, hammering the vitamin D3 and B12. I feel fine, like my energy is great, but I could tell my body is fighting something. So, not a big deal, I feel fine. Kind of a non-issue, but I like how a lot of the bars open up their facades during the summertime. We're on the corner of West 45th Street and 8th. Wow. Size. This is Tom. I have a cough right now. It's never been this bad. It's going on 3 weeks. Whew. Hopefully mine doesn't go on 3 weeks. All right, some New York City news, everybody. This is the Row Hotel. This is the largest migrant center in New York City. It sits in between 45th Street and 44th Street on 8th Avenue. Right here, the Row Hotel. CPQ trainer, this is Tom. What is your favorite bagel place? The best bagel spot in all of New York City is in Lower Manhattan. It's right in Hanover Square. It's called Leo's Bagels. The place is unreal. It's amazing. I haven't been there in a long time, mainly because I don't work down there anymore. But that's the type of bagel place where you go out of your way and travel like 2 hours and wait online to get it. It's that good. See, that's one thing about Florida. I mean, I love Florida, you guys know that. I've yet to have a good bagel down there. Just being honest. Like zero. All right, hold on one second. I'm gonna put you guys down on the trash cans here. Oh, I have Todd. Yeah, the Rabbit R1. I was watching a review video on YouTube from MKBHD about it, and on his Twitter. That's a cool device. It's like a personal, chatbot assistant. It's pretty cool. I don't know if it's going to be scalable. Hardware is a very difficult business. Obviously, software is way more scalable, and hardware is more capital intensive. So hardware, if you're a hardware manufacturer or an OEM, it's a very, very tough business. Margins are terrible, and you have to manage inventories and the like. Now, I used to work, this is kind of unrelated. We were the largest sales partner in America for this company called Teltonica. Now, this was mainly for like IoT stuff. So they sold like routers, which would compete with the likes of Cradlepoint. So if you're thinking about the traditional router business like SD-WAN, Cradlepoint really dominates that. But this company, Teltonica, they had some pretty good products, and their cloud service was free. So we won a lot of deals like that because, you know, Cradlepoint, the device is going to be, you know, $2 or $3 grand for the device, and you got to pay monthly for the cloud subscription service. Teltonica, their cloud support was free. It wasn't the best, but and it was very difficult if you had multiple locations. But if you were running, you know, like a medium-sized business operation, it was definitely another option that would save you a lot of money. The point I'm trying to make is we would work very, very closely with their like C-suite. And if you're a hardware manufacturer, my God, like, is it stressful? You have to deal with so much stuff. And imagine being a startup in the hardware space, going through the pandemic with semiconductor shortages. You're like the last person on the totem pole if you can't pay up big bucks, right, to get your raw materials to make your products. So I don't know, to kind of give my thoughts on that Rabbit device, I think it's really cool. It's like this like personal AI assistant, but I don't know if it's going to catch on mainstream, because couldn't you just build an AI assistant into your smartphone? Like, do you really need to have a separate device to be your AI assistant? I don't know. All right, we're right outside the Port Authority bus terminal on the corner of 8th.
Maybe the play there, though, is somebody's going to acquire it. So maybe maybe the founder will get a pretty nice exit. All right. Now, in this building to the left, this New York Times building, there's an enterprise software company, Datadog, is in there. And that stock was getting crushed after that big tech wreck we had at the end of 2021. But the stock is trying to climb its way back. That's a good company, has a good product. I know a lot of people who work there. So that one... So that one is moving back on the watch list as well. And they're right here. Now this is a gun-free zone. So this is really good as a preventative measure. So if you're a criminal and you see this sign, you know, and you're packing some heat, unfortunately you can't enter. You gotta, you know, leave your guns in New Jersey. So just a forewarning. I had a wild experience on the subway today. There was this crazy guy that had all these like shelves. He had this massive bracelet of shelves. And it was a packed subway car, and the guy was screaming and hollering at everybody, and he stops right in front of me, and I was like, oh my God. Stops right in front of me, turns to me, and he just keeps calling me a demon, a white devil, and he's like casting this spell on me. With all of these shells, and I just try to ignore it, and I just got off at the next stop. So hopefully I don't have any bad luck next week from the six train voodoo. Anyway, 40th Street, we're gonna run all the way down to 34th Street, which is gonna be the very back end of Madison Square Garden, as well as the Moynihan Train Hall. We may have time to go in there and check out the post office part of it. Oh, I think we forgot to talk about the largest, the biggest news of next week. Guys, it's Fed week. We just conveniently glazed over all of that as we were talking about AI pretty much the whole night. But this is a massive, massive week for monetary policy. The FOMC meeting is this week. We are going to hear from Fed Chair Jerome Powell himself. And if you look at the CME Fed Watch tool, which essentially is futures trying to predict and project interest rate cuts, it's pretty much done a complete 180. And what I mean by that is the market was pricing in 2 cuts over the summer. Now it's pricing in none, maybe one towards the tail end of the year, and then the first real highest probability in 2025. So 2 major pieces of economic data came out last week, or I should say one, and then we had that major CPI print. So the PCE came in at 2.7%, much hotter than expected. We had CPI come in at 3.5%, much hotter than expected. So I think, quite obviously, there's going to be no rate cut this week. I mean, I think that's just totally blatantly obvious. But I believe that the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, is going to be forced to kind of talk down this market a little bit. I think he's going to be forced to take a more hawkish stance. And we'll see what that does coinciding with a lot of these big earnings. Any thoughts, any predictions for the FOMC meeting that's coming up? Any interesting predictions or projections about the Fed? Now, for some context, to keep us all on the same page, the current Fed funds rate is 5.25% to 5.5%. But if you look at the bond market, the 2-year Treasury yield hit 5%. So we now have a 5 handle on the 2-year. So rates have been going up, and this is going to put a lot of pressure on yields to the upside. If you look at the average 30-year fixed right now, 7.5%. So I think that's going to put more pressure on the housing market in terms of overall transactions being completed, because the cost of capital is so high. A little piece of New York City market data: the lion's share of the deals this year, the vast majority of the deals that have been getting done in New York City this year have been cash, no banks. So that kind of tells you the state of the market. Nobody wants to pay 7.5% to 8% money. They're not going to do it. Brandon says, Tom, the Fed will not cut rates until 2025. Nelson says the market is going to ignore Powell. Powell lying leash. Doc 7 says Jerome Powell needs to speak less, much less. Stop trying to manipulate the market. Hey, Jonathan Richards, what's going on? Good to see you. Oh, right on cue. Look who we have. It's Fed Chairman Jerome H. Powell himself. Welcome, sir. Now, Fed Chair, is there anything more specific you can give us as a Walks in Wall Street exclusive tonight? As a preview to your speech? Anything interesting you could provide with the chat? As we're coming up on Madison Square Garden. And the New Yorker Hotel. I feel like going in this McDonald's and getting a hot tea, but I will never go to this McDonald's. If you're a tourist, I'll do you guys a solid. Don't go into the McDonald's on West 35th Street and 8th Avenue. Now, I'm sure all of you know about the most grotesque, gruesome McDonald's in all of New York City's history. I'm sure you guys know that one, right? Well, it's not this one. It's closed down. It's banished. It's gone. Thank God. It was the one right next to the Comedy Club, right off of MacDougal Street, or the Comedy Cellar, I should say. That one was, oh my God, that's a felony that they let that in operation as long as they have. But it is closed down now. But the things that I've seen in that McDonald's over the years, my God, my God. Guys, look at how gorgeous the Empire State Building looks tonight. That crispy red, white, and blue. Love that. Isabella says 5.5% interest rate sounds like heaven to me. I was born in a country where the current rate is 66%. That's true. I also think the same about inflation, right? You know, us Americans were complaining about inflation being 3.5%. But I mean, think about some of these other countries around the globe. You know, Argentina has triple-digit inflation. I mean, imagine living in an environment where your inflation rate is 100%. That's craziness. So, yeah, I mean, I totally understand. I think Americans we're used to having it too good. We're not used to living in, you know, super hyperinflationary environments. And also historically, right, if you go all the way back, a 7.5 30-year fixed is actually not historically high. That's like a mean reversion trade if you really think about it. At the current level where interest rates are for mortgages, we've essentially reverted to the mean, pretty much. Excuse me. Nelson says, life is good, economy is great. Come on with the pump. Hey Dave, this is Knicks Nation. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big basketball guy, but I'm definitely rooting for the Knicks. I think they have a game here next week, right? As well as the Rangers. This is a really kind of classic New York shot right here. You have the Empire State Building and Madison Square Garden in the same shot. Zozo Bob says people from Argentina flock to Miami. It's true. To buy electronics and goods because of their inflation rate. And a huge market in Miami, a huge part of the economy is remittances. Not a lot of people realize that, but it's true. The remittance market is absolutely massive. And I think that's another potential bull thesis for, I'm gonna refuse to move for this guy. Oh no, sorry. Because technically, I'm not in the street. No, I will move for that guy. But yeah, I mean, remittances is a huge part of the economy, which is essentially workers in the US sending money back overseas to their home country. It's huge. And I would say really over the last forever, to give a broad time frame, people have been getting ripped off from the Western unions of the world and things like that. You know, you can send money halfway around the world over the Bitcoin Lightning Network for nothing, for free. So I think, you know, lots of positive things happening with Bitcoin Lightning. That's great for workers sending remittances. Look at how crazy the architecture looks here. Mad. This is my uncle's yelling at me about putting my money in crypto. What's your take on cryptocurrency? Well, I think it's very broad, and the vast majority of it is fraudulent. The vast majority of it is unlicensed securities, in my view. But Bitcoin is not crypto. I think we shouldn't conflate the two. I do also believe that the SEC, Gary Gensler, our good friend Gary, is not doing his job appropriately. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Ah, yeah. Have a good night. Gotta watch where we're going. I think that the chairman of the SEC hasn't provided appropriate guidelines for cryptocurrencies, and that is why you have a lot of this fraudulent, you know, pump and dump nonsense. Ooh, I think there was an accident. Damn. Yeah, a lot of times these fender benders in New York City, there's really nothing you can do about it because the traffic is so harsh that people are just like, just go, forget about it. It's tough. There's a lot of hit and runs in New York. But anyway, there are some real projects, crypto tokens, if you will, that are real use case, real projects, essentially like software companies. But just like in any major technological cycle, the vast majority of it will go to zero, and then out of it, you're gonna have some really, really good projects and use cases. But my whole problem with the alt coins, or the alternative coins, if you will, is it's very difficult to get involved on an institutional level, for the most part, if you don't have clear regulatory oversight. Because there's still this narrative and there's this notion that many of these altcoins that are not Bitcoin are securities. And if that's the case, that means many people who are the founders of these projects have been soliciting securities without a license. And it's very illegal. It's like jail illegal. I don't think that's the fault of these founders. I think that's the fault of the SEC not giving a clear and fair ruling on it. So you're seeing a lot of that innovation go to Abu Dhabi, Qatar, overseas. I think it will come back to the US. I'm very, very bullish on the space overall, but the lion's share of my exposure to it is Bitcoin, which I believe is the only unconfiscatable asset in the world. All right, we're gonna walk around to the very front of the Pen 2 project. This is the new project by Vornado. It's actually getting hot out in New York. Austin city limits is Tom. Futures are green for tomorrow. That's good news. Maybe we'll break above the 50-day on the S&P. We did have a follow-through day Friday. Look at the very top of One Vanderbilt. Seems like everything is lit up in red, white, and blue. Caddy says I'm getting unsolicited medical advice from the chat. I appreciate the concern. I appreciate it. I think I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Steve Buffalo, I thought they reported. I thought their refining margins were down. I mean, still, I mean, talk about massive profits. Maybe you're right, but I could have sworn they reported already last week. You're probably right. I'm just probably going crazy, but hold on one second. You know, it's kind of a funny juxtaposition because, and this isn't to get political, it really has nothing to do with the Biden administration, but it's a funny kind of correlation. Oil and gas companies have made windfall record profits, the most in history, under the Biden administration. So a lot of times when Republicans say, there's an attack on oil and gas, I mean, it's been windfall, like cartoonishly ridiculous profits from the oil and gas industry. Imagine like Scrooge McDuck, high diving into a pit of money. That's what it's been for like Chevron, ExxonMobil, through the Biden presidency. And I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that's the reality. Energy prices have been up. The refining business has been really strong, and they've been minting money, printing cash. And they've been distributing a lot of that cash to shareholders because it's very difficult for them to invest in the future of the business if they think the future of the business is going to be regulated away. So it's been an absolute cash cow. It's been a ridiculous cash cow. Make this right. We're now headed towards Macy's at Herald Square. Nelson's talking about the yen. Well, the Japanese yen is in free fall, which has been helping equities, their equity market. Not for nothing, with all this talk about, the big narrative, the fear, I like to call it like fear porn, essentially what people put out there about the US dollar, going to zero and nobody's going to use the US dollar. It's actually the complete opposite of what people are saying. It's the US dollar is getting incredibly strong and more people are using it. So I don't understand what these people are talking about. Maybe they just want to drive like clicks and things like that. But there's never been as many people using the US dollar around the world as there is right now. And the US dollar is getting stronger against the basket of global currencies. So if anything, this is the time to travel internationally. So really take what a lot of those, fear narrative pushers say with a grain of salt. Do your own diligence on it. I mean, look where the Dixie is right now. So if you're thinking about vacationing this summer, it's actually probably a great year to do that because the dollar is very, very strong. So take a nice vacation abroad. Your dollar will definitely go a lot further. So Alright guys, well if you enjoyed the live stream tonight, please click the like button and click the subscribe button if you're new here. We do these streams every day starting at 8:30 p.m. Also, if you want to receive all of our free equity research or stock market research, we send it out to the group here for free. You just have to type !news, N-E-W-S in the chat, and click the link to our Substack called Behind the Street. I gotta go grab a cup of coffee or tea or something, and then I gotta go to sleep because I gotta wake up early and go to work. So guys, have a wonderful, successful week ahead. Stay optimistic. the golden goose of American prosperity and capitalism will continue to barrel down the tracks of Penn Station, and I'll see you tomorrow. Michelle, all of our moderators, Steve Buffalo, Creative, Karina Thompson, NMB 45, John, Check the Logic, Mohammed, New England Crypto, Austin City Limits, Unrestricted Climb, Out and About from Toronto, Canada, Richard Scott, Joy, DM, all of our moderators, guys, take care. MB Elias, always a bull market somewhere, you just need to know where to look. Matthew, Isabella, Darren, Karina, Anthony. See you guys, have a good week. And Todd.